Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series. And today's guest, you may have seen him or follow him on TikTok or Instagram, the number one social media lawyer, and his at Law by Mike. So thank you very much, Mike Mandell, for joining us here today. We really appreciate you joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, first of all, Mike, maybe you can give us a little bit about your background, what drew you into the practice of law, and where you got from your studies at Duke and to where you are today. And certainly a lot of us want to definitely know about what brought about the social media aspect of your marketing and practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a family of attorneys. My father and uncle are both attorneys, and they're personal injury attorneys. So I kind of grew up always hearing these stories about how they would help people who were injured. And it really interested me to hear, that they were able to get them compensation for being hurt or harmed by someone's negligence. In the sense they couldn't be like a doctor that could heal their injuries, but they could at least get something for someone to make them feel more whole. And that type of hearing that in the background kind of influenced me to want to go into law. I went into USC Annenberg School of Communications for undergrad. I studied mass communications, public speaking, and back then social media had just come out. So I think we were one of the first schools after the Ivy League schools to have Facebook. So there wasn't too many courses on the impact of social media. It was really more about traditional marketing and traditional means of mass media and how it affects people and influences people. A lot has changed, obviously, since then. But after that, I went into law school, went to Duke, and kind of focused my studies on tort law, product liability, anything that would be related to that kind of personal injury field, because that's what had interested me and what I kind of grew up around. After graduating Duke, I went into big law. Firm was called Reed Smith. They focused, they had a big area focused on product liability. And it was kind of the typical thing when you go to a school like Duke to go work for a big law firm. And I figured, hey, if I like it, I'll stay with it. If I don't, I can always go work with my family. I was at at Reed Smith for about seven and a half years. I enjoyed working there, but you couldn't really do everything you wanted to do, for yourself, especially when we're talking about marketing. You have to go through so many levels of approval that if you want to do one post on social media, by the time it gets approved, it would either not be relevant or be changed so much that it's not really expressing too much personality. And that's just one of the things that happens when you work for a big company, So when I left, which was just in October of 2020, that was my first opportunity to really market myself. And I kind of was just researching, what to do. And it was obvious to me, like Instagram, all the lawyers are already kind of on there using it. But TikTok was kind of this untapped area of social media. There was like maybe 50 lawyers on TikTok compared to like thousands on Instagram. So I kind of figured, you might as well post on both and see what happens. And, once I started doing it, things just kind of like snowball effect, It was, it was unexpected. It wasn't planned. Like I wasn't planning for, to have such a big impact on social media. I was thinking that some people would see my face and call me for, legal help. But in the end, it ended up being something much bigger than that. Just kind of giving people tips to help them out, tips to be a better citizen, tips to know how to deal with, certain situations, whether it be with the cops or, how to, represent yourself in court or present yourself to a judge. So, that was what was really unique about the situation, how it like evolved into, what I basically doing now.
Yeah, and I think it's really impressive that it's in such a short period of time. You were just telling me at the beginning, I think a couple of days ago, it's like, look, let's see where the first post is, and it wasn't that long ago. So, can you trace maybe a single TikTok video or reel, or what kind of brought about this exponential growth, or was it just something organic each time you would add something there to it?
I mean, if you look at my old videos from the beginning, you can kind of see an evolution. I think in the beginning, they were definitely a little more stiff. Um, and as time has progressed, you learn things about what engages people more, how long the video should be, and things of that nature. But I'd say the first one that kind of knew like things were working was when we got like 1 million views on TikTok for just a simple one where I said, legal loophole. Bet you didn't know that if you're in Wisconsin, you can drink at any age if you're with your parents. And that, of course, kind of given the younger audience on TikTok, got a lot of attention, a lot of comments. What about my state? Things like that. But then the real big one was the one where I said what to do when you get pulled over by the cops for speeding, and that became kind of viral in a sense where people were remaking it. And so after that, it was a lot of attention. I think I woke up after maybe sleeping like 6 or 7 hours to like 800,000 new followers. So it was definitely a big video that, again, didn't go into it thinking that it was going to be that type of video, just wanted to give a tip and say it in an interesting way.
Well, now that you have such a large audience of like 5 million plus on TikTok and 700,000 or so on Instagram, how does that change now your approach in terms of marketing, or even really practicing law for that matter, right? That I mean, now you have this audience, these followers that perhaps you look at something on the legal education side more than on going into court and taking on matters. Or I mean, maybe you don't even have the time to successfully do both. What has that sort of changed now? I mean, it's not even almost half a year really. What has that brought about for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's been definitely a lot of change. My time is split between actually handling cases and, I get calls of cases from all across the country, even, in other countries, and have worked with, trying to find lawyers to connect those people with things outside of the U.S. That's a new thing that I'm working on, and connecting people with the right lawyers. Maybe you guys know some, but and over there in Toronto, but but really it's split between coming up with this creative content, making educational type material, but also when I do get these calls, whether it be criminal cases, personal injury cases, family matters, things like that. Over the last few months, I've really just started creating connections of a network of attorneys that I work with in every state, to make sure that people who call in, really get the correct legal care that they need. And it's, at least here in the States, my experience, kind of like with doctors, is, it's not easy just to go online and type in, I want the best lawyer, or something like that, because you're not going to find it. Or you're going to just find a bunch of people who, as you were saying earlier, say they're the best lawyer or something like that. But really, it's kind of that word of mouth and being, asking someone that's in the field or industry. They seem to have the best knowledge. Same thing with doctors. I feel like too. You're looking for a good doctor. It's not easy to Yelp it, but if you talk to some people or some other doctors that are in a different field, they'll tell you who they respect and who they think are good. So that's really what I've been working on, is creating that network of lawyers that I work with across the country for all different legal fields.
Now, can you maybe share a bit into the creative process as to how do you fuse providing access to justice and like the legal things you highlight in your videos there with that creative, how do I make this go and be interesting and captivating to my followers, or bring in more followers?
Yeah, so I mean, everything for me at least starts with just kind of like a topic, right? Um, I know for a fact that anything involving criminal issues seems to be very popular, but that's mostly because that's something that people are dealing with constantly. When we're talking about an accident, no one is interested in seeing that probably until they've been in an accident. But whereas criminal, people want to know what they should do in certain situations if it was to come up, and especially with today's climate, things involving the police, it's highly relevant and important to people of what to do and how to deal with that, situations, encounters with the police. But there's the law intersects with everything we do. It's like science in the sense of like it's everywhere. There's nothing you can do when that doesn't have some relation to the law, and even if it's I've done posts that are outside of the law and just kind of talking about how to negotiate, how to persuade, things that are still relevant for lawyers to know, but also relevant for everyone to know. But yeah, so I start with the topic, try to get the relevant law related to it if it's a law related topic, and really work on condensing it down to, as of now, about 17 seconds, which isn't easy, but that's the attention span that you kind of have to deal with. And you do what you can, and just make sure that what you're saying isn't misrepresenting anything or misleading, because there are ethical rules that you have to follow and make sure that you're complying with that when you're talking to the general public as a lawyer.
So before we start, I was sharing kind of in Canada, we have the Law Society of Ontario here in Ontario, where they have regulations on how you can advertise in terms of website advertising. You can't go into the court and hand out business cards and things like that. So I know you practice in California. So wondering how that your sort of TikTok presence and your Instagram, how does that relate to what you were just sharing about ethical issues? And at the end of the day, you're still a licensed attorney, and you have to sort of make sure that that doesn't get affected because of some videos that you're posting and the impact that might have on your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certain rules you have to follow. Like you were saying, you can't be handing out your card to someone who gets in a car accident on the side of the road. That's why you've heard probably the stigma of calling attorneys, personal injury attorneys, ambulance chasers. But you're not allowed to do that. And it's funny because, well, not funny, but it's interesting because I've had people come and reach out to me because they've been through a serious injury, but they signed up with an attorney that I think a lot of attorneys do things that are not ethical, and had connections to the hospital or something, and the person got out and signed up and then not happy with the lawyer, and it just happens a lot. So you can't be doing things like that. But as far as staying like ethically in place, I worked with a attorney that was part of the ABA for 30 years, American Bar Association, running the ethical division when it came to mass marketing. So one of the first things I did was, when I started to realize that this was becoming bigger and a much more presence than just a local thing of videos going out just locally, I made sure that everything I was doing was staying within the lines of ethical for every state, which is not easy. But really it comes down to making sure that what you're saying is educational and not an advertisement. So the way that, at least here in the States, to kind of stay within that is not saying like, hey, hire me, or click my link or whatever, but rather just giving tips out, and keeping it just educational. And you can still do that advertisement part if you want to, but there's just a lot more things you have to make sure you comply with every state having a different thing, a different ethical rule you have to follow, and disclosures and things of that nature.
And does it work differently because Instagram and TikTok have such a global audience, right? Even though you're based in California, that anyone could really see that. And as a result, it may appear that you could be advertising in New York or Florida, and do different rules kind of apply there, or are they not really forecasting how things work on the internet, because maybe this is something relatively new, and certainly in TikTok, as you pointed out, even in the last year and a half, that the lawyers and legal professionals were taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't think it's been completely dealt with by, every state's bar, of how to, handle it. But, at least as far as when I've spoken with the ABA attorney that I was telling you, or the ethical attorney that I was telling you about, it's as long as you're not advertising, you don't run into the issue of really having to comply with every single state's different rules, because for advertisements, it's different. It's different from just giving educational information, which doesn't require disclosures and things of that nature. But if they're an advertisement, then you do have to comply with all those things, and you have to make sure you're doing it in each state. And if you're not, they could bring you in, even though you're not licensed in that state. They could still bring you in for violating their rules, their ethical rules on how attorneys should advertise in their state. And that's just one of you really have no control over where your videos are going to go. So I guess if you're going to go into the social media realm and try to put out videos, you want to make sure that you're doing your best to comply with the rules in every state. I don't think, as if you're in Canada, I wouldn't worry so much about U.S. states trying to bring you in and challenge you, or say you're ethically violating their rules there, because I think it'd be obvious to them that you're a Canadian lawyer, a Canadian paralegal, and you're not trying to get U.S. clients. But if you were, making it sound like you were, then you probably would have to make sure you're following their ethical rules.
Now, Mike, another piece though with this kind of blowing up, not necessarily overnight, but I mean, there was that one night you had the 800,000 new followers. But
Yeah.
how does that impact now you from Mike, the lawyer, as opposed to Law by Mike, in terms of maybe some of your clients are like, hey, my lawyer now has 5 million. He's cooler than I am on TikTok with all these creative posts. But do you feel that it may impact your ability to represent people because of the following or the notoriety you get with all of your posts and publicity and social media presence?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, on one hand, there's been lawyers in the past who've been famous for doing famous cases, that has never impacted their ability. If anything, it made their ability, their, stronger case for them for why a certain client should go to them. And I don't think it affected how judges or courts would rule, based on the fact that they had some notoriety behind them. But I think from the social media aspect, I doubt that too many judges have seen me, just given the age difference, and not many of them being on social media. But I think it's been, more than anything, it's been a favorable thing, because the people who have reached out to me have seen me on TikTok or Instagram, but they've seen me with, saying I trust that person because they're, giving out information that, lawyers would normally charge for, or that people don't want you to know, like things like that. And that kind of is just a after effect of, giving this educational information. It's also helping people and building a trust and a relationship with people who are following you that, you don't really get from like mass media advertisements. There's no relationship or connection between a TV commercial or radio ad and the listener or viewer, right? But there is a connection between social media, because people can talk to you, they can reach out to you, they can, it's just different, right? In that sense. So I think that really is what is great about, the social media aspect of marketing yourself.
Well, I think it's excellent what you're doing, and certainly one of the aspects that maybe doesn't get focused on is how it provides access to justice, because you're reaching a demographic that may not otherwise know about some of these laws or the importance of what happens. I think I just shared something about the police come to your door. People don't necessarily know you don't have to let them in. And um, how do you kind of find that balance there of providing that educational piece and doing it in a way that is going to reach the people you want to educate, right? What goes into making sure you have the audience there, because it's great to share legal information, but if it's not falling on the people you want to reach, it's going unheard.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things are trial and error. You have to put out stuff that you think people will like to know about, and you see if it hits or not. And if it does hit, then you kind of keep doing that while you keep testing out other things. But without a doubt, things that are relevant to people's everyday lives, what their rights are, what they can and can't do, how they should, deal with certain situations when they're dealing with authority, whether that's government or the police or whatever it may be. I think that those are the things that people are most curious about and want to learn. And you can give people. You don't necessarily have to be in that field of law to be just giving tips out that are, in a sense, kind of like I like to think of these tips being basically the basics. If you are really dealing with a situation that's going to be more complex, you're obviously going to want a lawyer. But this is just so that the bare minimum of what you can do to protect yourself.
Now, I see a question here from Roxana about clients trying to contact you, outside of your business hours and say, "Hey, look, I just saw you were posting, and how come you don't have time to answer maybe one of my questions?" Or managing client expectations in regards to, I mean, certainly this has significant amount of your time into brainstorming ideas, shooting the videos, editing, being involved in the creative process. And how do you manage both the client expectations and now your followers expectations of seeing you and regular creative content of, I don't know if it's going to be daily or a couple times a week? How do you find that balance?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I was originally first started out, it was all me doing everything. And I was probably getting about 2, 3 hours of sleep a night. Um, so that was, not sustainable. But, now I have a team of people that I work with on, the social media side. I have people that I work with, that help, the editing the video, like shooting the video and things of that nature. And then on the other side, I have people that assist with, attorneys that assist with, reaching out to the clients. I hop on calls, just helping with scheduling and things of that nature. But it certainly does take, I mean, at least at this point for me, it takes a team of people to make sure that nothing slips between the cracks and that everyone's taken care of and getting the, representation that they should get and the attention that they should get. But, when you're first starting out, you have to really just carve out time for each thing, really making yourself as productive as possible by scheduling things out is the best, way to do it, and making sure that you carve out, the work time from what you're trying to do as far as the marketing time.
And with the marketing, certainly I have a lot of students who are on TikTok and Instagram and looking to maybe use that for their future practice in terms of being able to promote themselves and market themselves and their practice. Do you have any advice for students who are looking to leverage kind of the platforms they are using into promoting themselves or highlighting themselves for either law firms to look at them as attractive candidates, or for themselves to look into the future of having their own clients in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. As far as social media to market yourself for law firms, I think you want to go the more conservative route when doing your social media. Just with anything, um, I'm not quite sure how a law firm would feel if I was applying to one and they, would see my videos. They might not look at those in the way that they think their firm should be represented. So I would definitely be careful if you're going in that route, and keep your videos more to the, you can still do the educational side, but probably more, in line of what you've seen that firm has done, looking at their website or other advertisements and things they've put out, and making sure you're kind of consistent with those type of firms. If you're going your own route, then I think my suggestion is just find, something you're passionate talking about, find something you think that people will relate to, and then try to make it entertaining. The main things you can do, in social media is to entertain, inspire, or educate. And if you can do all three, then you'll probably end up having like a good hit.
Now, if you compare maybe the 7+ years you were practicing in big law, and I mean, going back maybe to when you were at Duke and you were thinking, what are the opportunities there? I know I have, the family practice that I can always get into, and I have big law. And now you've gone in the route of having your own practice and focusing as well on the social media aspect. What do you feel very happy with where you are right now in terms of your decision to do what you're doing? And what's sort of your focal point now going forward with everything that's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy with my decision. I better be, because I'm doing it. But the I like I was saying in the beginning of this, was that the act of helping people was always kind of my inspiration into going into law. And the thing I realized when the social media thing took off was that I could help more and more people. Here, if I was to stick with my family's firm, which I ended up, leaving in the beginning of this year, to kind of pursue this route. Uh, if I, stuck in that firm, I could help, people here locally in Los Angeles, and you can only help, so many people, right, locally in this area. But if I did the social media route, I was, capable of helping people in different states all over the country, involving different legal issues. And I felt like that was a way to really elevate, my goals, of helping people. And now I've made connections with lawyers, in each state, and really created this network of relationships that I wasn't, really expecting to have, but I'm super grateful for.
Now, with all of these posts and getting hundreds of thousands and millions of views, do you get people that reach out to you and say, Mike, thanks for that post about the warrant there? The police had come by the other day and I knew not to open the door just because of what you had posted. Do you get a lot of feedback like that in comments, and people reaching out to you? And how does that make you feel with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I do get a lot of those comments. I think I had someone tell me that they used one of my tips, like when a cop pulled them over and they didn't get a ticket. And so, I mean, it's great to see that. Um, you know, the whole point is of these posts were to educate people. When you can see it actually working and helping people, it's a really good feeling, and it helps to inspire myself to continue doing it.
Now, one of the on the contrary, did you have any backlash, any trolls, anything with when you're put yourself out on the internet? Obviously, you're gonna have some people just hate on things just for the sake of hating on it. And think when you go into this profession, you're not necessarily thinking about how widespread that both the positive and the negative things can get to. And do you have any advice for dealing with trolls or people that are kind of being negative to what you're doing?
Yeah, you can't let those comments put you down or prevent you from doing what you want to do. You have to stick to what you really are inspired to do and motivated to do, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it or make you feel bad about it. You're always, as you said, going to get those type of people. It doesn't matter. I mean, maybe not when you're first starting out, because it's going to be your followers are going to be people you probably know, but as it expands, there's always going to be those types of people, and just don't let them get under your skin. I've even had people, and please don't do this, but prank phone call me, and they were some little kids, I guess, or something. But I told them, I said, if you call me again, I'm going to sue you. And they stopped calling me. But yeah, you'll get those type of comments. But for me, at least, overwhelmingly, like I would say 95% of the comments are good advice, ever sorry, not good advice, good comments, saying favorable things. Sometimes you'll get people going, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Who would trust this TikTok lawyer? But it's just people who don't know, they're not willing to look into, oh, what has this person done in his career? Where did he go to school? What is, how long he's been a lawyer? They just want to say something, mean or whatever, and it is what it is. Just keep doing what makes you happy, and you'll get to where you want to be.
And I guess that a lot of lawyers and paralegals have kind of that um, feeling there sometimes that, hey, well, now that I'm known for this, that it's taking away. I mean, you went to Duke, you were in big law for 7.5 years. That, I mean, you don't necessarily have to validate yourself in response to those trolls and those people there. But do you feel that that if it ever kind of minimizes all this that you've done to get to this point, or again, is it something like, hey, I know what I've done, I'm successful, and if you're not going to respect me for that, then you don't need to be following me, or you don't need to be really commenting?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, I know what I've done. I know what I can do, and that I'm a skilled attorney. And it's just someone's comment on the internet is not going to take that away from me. But my advice as far as if you do get those type of comments, don't really engage with the people. It just makes things worse. Most likely, they'll just argue back and forth. Also, it pushes stuff like up, bad comments like that and stuff up. If you're interacting and it's getting more and more attention, it's going to become more prevalent on your social media. So it's best to either just do nothing with it, or if it really offends you, to delete it. But sometimes bad press is good press. So just I would say only delete it if it's something that's really offensive.
Now, a lot of students again use social media to connect with attorneys, others in the profession. Anything from your end there? If the people have reached out to you, probably, and what's a good way to kind of make an impact and use social networking, whether it is Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn or any site there, to be effective in getting mentorship and networking with those in the profession?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, with the TikTok, because it was so small as far as the amount of lawyers on it, the lawyer community there was very welcoming. Even when I first started out, you could reach out to them, they'd talk to you. It was just, it was a small amount of people on there. I'm not quite sure if it's changed, since I've gotten into it, and maybe more people now trying to kind of do the same thing. But also, Instagram is another way. I think, there's different ways of networking, in the sense, if you've met someone and maybe you went to a networking event, or you had like a drink with them or something, and you get their Instagram, it's a way that you can kind of, without being intrusive, build a relationship with someone in that sense of maintaining that networking, liking something, commenting one of their photos, or a story or something like that, is a good way to kind of network with people. Meanwhile, if we're talking about reaching new people through social media, as far as networking, it's probably a little bit harder, but certainly not impossible. Like I said, with TikTok, I was reaching out to people, and there were lawyers that were willing to give me tips and say welcome to the platform, and good luck.
I think another misconception that people have with social media is that, hey, well, one of these posts, there's 17 seconds. How long could it really take to put all that together? So maybe you can give us a couple things. Maybe what's the day, a typical day in the life of Mike Mandell, with again balancing all of this with your practice, and then what goes into when we see the finished product here. Maybe let's take one of your last reels there, or videos, and how long does all of that take to get from your creative idea of, let's say I want to do something involving how to get a legal loophole here, to the finished product that we see on TikTok and Instagram?
Yeah. So, we start with the topic. And from there, making the script and researching, making sure the laws correct that I'm talking about, and all that. I would say first 17-second video could be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what the topic is. and then condensing it, into something that, we can work with. The filming part is probably another 45 minutes to an hour. And then the editing, which fortunately I don't have to do, is can be, upwards of an hour too. So for this 17-second video, it can literally be a 3-hour thing. But I think, you know, people probably know that a lot of my videos are kind of high production. You don't necessarily have to go through all of that. Again, the video that we were talking about that went viral, that was a very simple thing. It didn't involve any, wild or crazy editing, really. Especially, actually, the first one I did that we were talking about with the underage drinking thing with your parents. Make sure I clarify that. It, it was just simply throwing a ball up and then catching it, and the camera going up and down. So some things can be simple, but I think it's, just being creative with the process of what you think will engage people as you also speak and say something engaging.
And in terms of, I guess, your day-to-day life there, are you sort of carving out some time every day to do this, or do you try to record a number of the videos, let's say on a Saturday, and then practice the rest of the week? Or how are you finding that ability to maintain balance between the two aspects?
Yeah, so I try to have now 2 days a week that I shoot, and those probably last for about 4 or 5 hours, and try to get, at least 7 videos done per week in that respect of the shooting part, and then another 2 days a week that we would spend kind of just trying to figure out the script and what topics and things of that nature, and then the rest of the time, is spent, helping out clients and getting on phone calls and making sure that cases are progressing the way they should be, and clients are getting the responses and things they need handled. And so it's always a busy time. And then of course there's, making, time to do things like this, and speak to people and kind of shed some knowledge on how to use social media and, the law and things of that nature.
Now, do you have kind of, in terms of looking forward, that do you want to look at doing sort of this more on a full-time basis and kind of practice a little less, or are you looking at kind of being able to balance both, or um, return back to practicing more full-time, or do you have any idea, or just going to see how it goes, how all this turns out?
Yeah, I mean, I want to try to continue to do both. I always, I didn't go, through law school not to practice law. I love doing it. I love arguing, and so I still want to have, a hand in doing that. But I also enjoy this creative process of educating. I'd love to have like a Netflix show or something where I, was like the Bill Nye of a law or something like that, and just, educating people about their rights, and the law, and trying to make it interesting, because it's really fun to do. So yeah, I think, as far as plans in the future is kind of expanding, to talk about things a little bit outside of the law, things that, like I was saying before, persuasion, negotiation, public speaking, things of that nature, just that goes a little bit beyond law, and then maybe going into different types of mediums, like whether it be more YouTube stuff or other types of social media, or even mass media, regular traditional media. I think, long-term goals, that's probably where I'd like to see myself doing.
I mean, well, you are situated out in LA, right? So it probably lends
Yeah.
itself really well for some of those creative ideas. And I think you have a really great track record of what you're doing right now. I see a question about, and I think certainly with those in social media, about having content schedule. And you were just talking about kind of the days of the week. How forward are you looking in terms of your posts? And or ever is it too far ahead that maybe it's not as topical at the time? Or how do you kind of find that balance of making sure you've shot everything, but at the same time not being too far ahead where, the topic may have lost kind of the audience, or like on TikTok, the song has kind of lost the top of mind, and it's a little out of date?
Yeah, so I mean, with the with the TikTok songs, obviously, if you're talking about a trend or whatever, the one thing I didn't try to really do is dancing stuff. So it's, there were lawyers on there doing that, but I wanted to take a route of doing educational. So I think if you, at least from my perspective, if I miss a song trend, it's not really important in that sense. But as far as planning stuff out, I always wish that I have more videos done than I do. You know, at least trying to have 4 or 5 in the back, uh, before you're going for the next time to shoot is ideal. I think really ideal would be to have like 30 videos ready to go, and just takes the pressure off of when other things happen in life and you can't make that time to make content, which does happen, believe me, and it will happen to anyone trying to do this, because it's hard to make time and also do your regular duties and your regular work. So the more that you can utilize your time to make as much content as possible, and free up your time for unexpected circumstances or just life in general, that's my advice as far as that goes.
What
Easier
are
said
what
than done.
what about, so certainly you have a family of attorneys, and what are your family sort of thoughts on all this, or your colleagues from Duke Law or Big Law? What do they tell you when they see you all over their social media? And I mean, 6 months ago, I mean, there wasn't Law by Mike, and
Yeah.
certainly there wasn't 5 million followers and 700,000 on Instagram. What are the thoughts and comments that you get from your friends and family from law school, and certainly your family of attorneys?
Yeah, so at first I think my family didn't quite understand, the whole thing. I was saying to my dad and uncle, I have 1 million people following me now. I have 2 million people following me. And they were like, great. Was that, they didn't understand what that meant. Just, it's that generational gap of not themselves not using social media that much, not understanding that, what the impact on social media can be, and what a large following is, or any of that thing. But once they, um, saw me kind of obviously going my own way and really pursuing this, they I think they started to understand that, it was something significant, and whether they understood it or not, they were realizing that it was something more significant than just posting some videos on your Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I've had people from my school reach out to me and say, I saw you on the, Instagram or TikTok, which is it's just funny because it's so unexpected. It wasn't like I went into Duke saying, "Hey, everyone, I'm gonna, make sure my face is on all over Instagram. That's my goal." But it's fun to hear, and in a sense, it's great because I have people reaching out to me that I haven't spoken to for a while. So it's a good way that they reconnected with me. So yeah, it's been been interesting for sure.
Now, in terms of that, you mentioned the generation gap, and I think a lot of um, even just general online kind of advertising kind of goes by a lot of the traditional. I mean, I think this is probably the same anywhere in the world, or in California as in Ontario, that they don't quite get what's going on with having a web presence and having a social media presence, and how to do it right. And what can you share from what you've done now about how to navigate promoting yourself, using social media, as well as making sure, obviously, that we've talked about the ethics and everything there, but that you're getting an audience that says, "Hey, look, Mike is doing amazing things. He's sharing. He's providing legal education. He's reaching so many people." How do you kind of connect that to the sort of older lawyers who may not necessarily appreciate the world of social media, and how you can use it and leverage it to be successful in both your practice and as well as legal education out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think law firms are starting to realize, social media is important. One thing that's just interesting in the sense that most law firms at this point have some type of, social media thing now. Is it popular? Probably not that that much, but I think one of the issues with that is just that a company, um, you know, doesn't usually have one person's face, representing them. So it's hard to really make some type of emotional connection or any type of connection with just a name and a building or whatever they're, doing. But if you're, especially if you're, marketing yourself, or maybe working in a smaller firm where, you have the ability to kind of say like, this is me and my firm. I think that you can really do a lot more with that, and reach people in a way where they can, understand a little bit more about who you are. I think it's important to, at the same time, educate, but also, give some intel into, who you are as a person and why you'd be a lawyer that they would trust, or want to represent them, and as a paralegal as well.
Now, what are some of the don'ts? I think maybe you can share with. And I think you were talking about if you're looking to get hired at a big practice, there to not be so to be a little bit more conservative in your post, because it may rub people the wrong way. But what are some other things that students can avoid making mistakes with using, whether it's their personal social media or a professional one, in terms of doing things that may impact them down in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure everyone knows, social media is a, double-edged sword, in the sense where you could, in one hand, it could, get you a lot of attention, but it might not be the attention you wanted. So you got to be careful about what you post, what your friends post. I, as a personal injury attorney, and even on the defense side, we would always run social media reports on people, and trust me, they also do that when they're interviewing people too. And you can get a lot of dirt on people that post things that they shouldn't be posting. So be mindful of that fact, and that's why I said, especially when you're considering, applying for jobs and things of that nature, probably better to stay more on the conservative side, and then once you have the job, you can work on trying to push the limits a little bit more on what you put on social media, to get attention for you and your firm. That's kind of the way I'd go about it, to protect yourself from anything that could harm you. Obviously, the other don'ts are, don't post things that, there's nothing wrong with posting things that might be controversial, but make sure that, especially if you're applying for jobs, sometimes it's better to take the neutral approach. I personally like to take a more neutral approach when doing posts, because you if you take one stance on something, it may make a lot of people angry on the other side. So sometimes it's better just to take the neutral approach of, what do you think, or tell me what you think, and things like that, rather than saying this is what I think. Let the other people have the discourse over whether they agree with that law or not, on your commentary.
Yeah, you don't want the real police pulling you over and saying that, let's see you get get out of this with your.
I don't think I'm a big fan with them after a lot of my posts, but yeah.
Now, you brought up about the social media from the personal injury side, and certainly I think on the criminal side sometimes. Do you tell your clients the same thing? Look, if you're filing we're pursuing litigation on let's say a motor vehicle accident or product liability, and you're saying this has impacted your life, but meanwhile on your TikTok you're doing all the latest dances and showing that you're of sound abilities. There's no, you're on crutches or something, but you're doing the Dougie or whatever. It's dating me there, but what do you tell them in terms of making sure that they don't unravel their case because of their social media account?
Yeah, this is definitely an issue, and we've always told clients to be careful of it. The problem is, I even at my family's firm, they had something that they had to sign saying that they're aware of, that social media, things they post, they're aware that it could be used, against them, type of thing, in the sense where, a picture, you could even just be doing a hike or something, and even though you are injured, no one knows that, and they only see what the picture shows, which is the person doing the hike, and maybe you were in complete, brutal pain when you did that walk, or who knows, right? But there's just no, it never looks good when people do that. So we've always tried to just say, be mindful of that, but it becomes difficult because cases, as you know, take a long time to actually get to court, get to trial, or settle, or whatever it may be. So people start to forget, they start to post things, they don't remember that they're friends, maybe tagging them in things. And, so obviously you don't want any, like, if you feel good, then go and post stuff, like, don't be lying, obviously, but just be mindful that what you say, what you post can be used against you in a way that another skilled lawyer will try to twist and make it seem worse than maybe it was.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Mike, for taking the time and joining us here. Really appreciate you sharing a little bit about your background, as well as what goes into all of your posts, and ways that we can be more creative. I think in sort of the legal profession sometimes stifles a lot of that creativity, as you mentioned, because people are concerned about liability or image, and sometimes because there's so many people involved that, like you mentioned, going through that chain of command to get approval, and you're not going to find 20 people that are all on the same page. But perhaps you have any final words of advice for my students here as they look to get into the profession, and they are on social media and they want to leverage that, and they want to be creative in their marketing, they want to stand out. Anything in terms of getting from being a student, if you go back to when you were at Duke and where you are today, what can you share from them? And once again, thanks so much for taking the time and joining us.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. I think your focus, I mean, at least this is from my experience, my focus was becoming the best lawyer, or for you all, the best paralegal possible, and really refining your skills, making sure that in order to market yourself, you better be good at your job too, so make sure that you're focusing on those aspects and making yourself as good as you can be and as smart as you can be in your area of law. And then you can add this social media aspect to it and see where it goes. I didn't intend to become some type of influencer, social media type person. What I intended to do was just become the best lawyer I can possibly be, and use this social media as an extra thing to help generate business and educate. It kind of transformed into something else for me, but I think for everyone else, if you're going into this to be a paralegal, to be a lawyer, focus on making your skills the best, and then use the social media to really bring in more people, and show off your skills and your intelligence, to the world.
Perfect. So wish you all the best. Looking forward to some more creative posts there on TikTok and Instagram, and maybe your Netflix show one day, as you're hoping to accomplish there. And thanks again for taking the time and joining us. And thank you, Roxana, for helping organize everything. Wish everyone all the best, and take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah, no
Thank you
problem.
so much, Mike. Thank you so much for sharing your insight today. Looking forward to see you on Netflix someday.
Thank you.
And thanks, JP. Have a great day, everyone.